The president learned his wife didn't cheat, and the child is his own. But the truth was more shocking than he ever imagined. He ran to kiss her. "Hello, my beautiful family friend. Welcome back to Mr. Peter's Stories. Heavenly Father, bless every reader of Mr. Peter's story, filling their hearts with hope, strength, and peace. Guide them through life's challenges, and let your love lead them to new beginnings. In your name, we pray. Amen." If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing family. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on the last story. Did it touch your heart? Let me know in the comments. I have just one channel named Mr. Peter's Stories. Today, we begin a story filled with deep emotions and unconditional love. It's a tale that will make you reflect on the beauty of relationships and the power of hope. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into this heartfelt journey together. Let me know if you'd like help crafting the full story or refining this introduction further. Heavenly Father, bless every reader of Mr. Peter's story, filling their hearts with hope, strength, and peace. Guide them through life's challenges, and let your love lead them to new beginnings. In your name, we pray. Amen. The Houston sunrise painted the glass towers of downtown in shades of amber and gold, but none stood quite as tall or gleamed quite as bright as the headquarters of Gale Enterprises. On the 70th floor, Ashley Gale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, watching his empire come alive beneath him. At 35, he'd built something extraordinary, a tech empire that had revolutionized artificial intelligence and quantum computing. But the view from the top was lonely, a truth he'd known intimately until Gabrielle Bassett crashed into his life like a meteor, brilliant and unstoppable. Ashley's fingers traced the cool glass, his reflection showing a man whom few would recognize from 10 years ago. Gone was the hungry look of desperation, replaced by the polished veneer of success. Custom Tom Ford suit, precisely trimmed dark hair, and eyes that had seen both poverty and billions. His phone buzzed with morning reports, stock prices, and board meeting reminders, but his mind wandered to the beginning, to the price of his ascent. 20 years earlier, Ashley had lived in a cramped apartment on the wrong side of San Antonio, sharing a bedroom with 2 siblings while his mother worked 3 jobs. The memory of hunger, of watching his mother count pennies for bread, had driven him with an almost manic intensity. He'd clawed his way into UT Austin on scholarships, working nights at a 24-hour diner, sleeping 3 hours between classes and work. His first venture failed spectacularly. The second earned him enough to eat regularly. The third caught the attention of venture capitalists. By 25, he'd learned that success in tech wasn't just about innovation, it was about survival. He'd orchestrated his first hostile takeover of a failing AI startup, absorbing their patents and talent. The founders had called him ruthless. They weren't wrong. That takeover became a template. Identify struggling companies with valuable intellectual property, acquire them at their weakest moment, strip them for assets, and integrate the best talent into Gale Enterprises. The pattern had worked flawlessly until Winters Industries. Ashley's jaw tightened at the memory. Thomas Winters had been a pioneer in quantum computing, but his company was hemorrhaging money on ambitious but unfocused research. Ashley had seen an opportunity: acquire the company's groundbreaking patents at a fraction of their worth. The takeover had been particularly brutal, with Ashley using every legal maneuver and market manipulation at his disposal. When Thomas Winters committed suicide a week after losing his company, Ashley had sent flowers to the funeral and continued building his empire. He'd buried the guilt beneath layers of success. Gale Enterprises expanded exponentially, absorbing smaller companies, recruiting top talent, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible with artificial intelligence. Every victory added another floor to his tower, Another layer of distance between the hungry boy from San Antonio and the billionaire CEO he'd become. The elevator chimed softly, interrupting his thoughts. Riker Chase, his head of security and oldest friend, entered with the morning security briefing. They'd met in college when Riker had caught someone trying to steal Ashley's ancient laptop, his only possession of value at the time. Riker had stopped the thief and returned the laptop, and Ashley had given him a job in his first successful startup. Now, Riker oversaw a global security operation, protecting Gale Enterprises' physical and digital assets. "Morning, boss," Riker said, his military precision evident in every movement. The quantum encryption team reported a breakthrough at 3 a.m. They're saying it could revolutionize our secure communication platforms. Ashley nodded, but his attention was drawn to a photo on his desk. Him and Gabriel at the quantum computing conference in Austin 18 months ago. The moment they'd met was etched in his memory with perfect clarity. He'd been giving the keynote address, discussing Gale Enterprises' advances in quantum-resistant cryptography, when a question from the audience had stopped him mid-sentence. Gabriel Bassett, brilliant and fearless in a red power suit, had pointed out a potential vulnerability in his company's approach. The auditorium had gone silent, waiting for him to respond to this unexpected challenge to his expertise. Instead of feeling threatened, he'd been intrigued. Her analysis was spot on, delivered with a confidence that came from genuine brilliance rather than arrogance. She was already making waves in the tech world. A prodigy from Houston's Fifth Ward, who'd earned her PhD in computer science from MIT at 23. Her work in AI security protocols had earned her both acclaim and controversy for its emphasis on ethical implementations and privacy protection. After his speech, he'd found her in the conference hall, expecting to continue their technical debate. Instead, they'd talked for hours about everything but work: her childhood in Fifth Ward, her grandmother's Louisiana cooking, her dreams of using technology to lift communities out of poverty. She challenged his assumptions about success, wealth, and responsibility with an insight that both unnerved and attracted him. Their courtship had scandalized Houston's old money circles. She refused to play the role of trophy wife, maintaining her position as head of AI security at a rival tech firm. When they married 6 months after meeting, the business world had buzzed with speculation about merged companies and shared patents. Instead, they'd kept their professional lives separate while building a personal connection that seemed unshakable. "Ashley?" Riker's voice pulled him back to the present. "There's something else you should know. The board is concerned about the recent stock volatility. Rumors about the new quantum project have some investors nervous." Ashley waved away the concern. The board was always nervous about something. His focus returned to the photo, to Gabrielle's radiant smile. 3 years of marriage had only deepened his amazement at finding her. She understood him in ways that sometimes terrified him, seeing past the billion-dollar armor to the scared kid from San Antonio, who still woke up sometimes wondering if it was all a dream. Their latest joy was hidden from public view. Gabrielle was 7 weeks pregnant. They'd agreed to keep it private until the first trimester passed, but Ashley caught himself grinning every time he thought about it. He, who had built an empire on calculations and control, found himself daydreaming about nursery colors and tiny shoes. The morning sun climbed higher, turning the glass towers into mirrors of light. Ashley's phone buzzed again, a message from Gabrielle. She was running late for their breakfast meeting due to traffic, but had exciting news about her latest AI security protocol. His reply was immediate and warm, a tone reserved only for her. Riker lingered, scrolling through his tablet. "We should discuss the Singapore expansion. The local partners are pushing for a meeting next month." Ashley nodded absently, his mind already racing ahead to breakfast with Gabrielle. He'd chosen Le Petit Café, her favorite French bistro, intimate enough for private conversations and close enough to both their offices for morning meetings. They tried to maintain these breakfast dates despite their chaotic schedules, small anchors of normalcy in their high-powered lives. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that this ordinary morning marked the beginning of the end. In less than 24 hours, an anonymous email would shatter the glass empire he'd built, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and redemption. As he gathered his things to leave, Ashley caught his reflection in the window, successful, confident, in control. The image wavered in the morning light, like a mirage that could vanish at any moment. Behind him, Riker watched with an expression that, had Ashley turned around, might have given him pause. A mixture of loyalty and something darker, more complex. The morning sun continued its ascent, illuminating a city that had watched Ashley Gale rise from nothing to everything. But even the brightest success casts the darkest shadows, and in those shadows, forces were already moving, planning, waiting to turn his glass empire into a prison of his own making. Ashley stepped into his private elevator, thinking of Gabrielle, of their future child, of the life they were building together. The doors closed silently, starting his descent to the ground floor, to breakfast, to the last normal morning he would know for a very long time. In his office, Riker remained behind, fingers hovering over his tablet, where an email draft waited. An email that would set in motion events that would test the very foundations of love and trust. But for now, in this moment, Ashley Gale was still the king of his glass empire, husband to a brilliant wife and future father to a child he already loved beyond measure. The elevator continued its smooth descent, carrying him toward a future he couldn't predict, couldn't control, couldn't possibly prepare for. Above him, the morning sun caught the Gale Enterprises logo at the top of the building, making it flash like a warning signal to a city that had yet to wake to the drama about to unfold in its midst. And so began the story of love, betrayal, and redemption that would shake Houston's tech world to its core. A story that would prove that sometimes the greatest test of love isn't in the grand gestures or public declarations, but in the quiet moments when everything you believe is called into question, and the only truth you can hold on to is the memory of a love that seemed, for a bright and shining moment, unbreakable. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The email arrived at precisely 7:43 p.m. on Ashley and Gabrielle's third anniversary. The timing wasn't accidental. Later, investigators would confirm that Winter Monroe had calculated everything down to the minute, knowing the couple would be celebrating at La Maison d'Or, Houston's most exclusive French restaurant. She wanted the bomb to detonate at the exact moment Ashley would usually be raising a toast to their love. The subject line was deceptively simple: truth comes at a price. Ashley might have ignored it, might have continued watching Gabrielle's face glow in the candlelight as she described her latest AI breakthrough, might have stayed in that bubble of happiness for a few moments longer. But his security protocols automatically flagged emails containing corporate data, and this one had triggered every alarm. The first photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, like a nightmare materializing on his screen. Gabrielle, entering the Lotus Hotel on Richmond Avenue. The timestamp showed 2 months ago, when Ashley had been in Singapore negotiating the Asian expansion. Kingston Wright, her research partner, followed close behind. Their body language was intimate, familiar in a way that made Ashley's throat constrict. More images followed, each one a dagger to his heart. Gabrielle and Kingston at a private dinner, late-night meetings in her office, a brush of hands that lingered too long. But it was the financial records that turned his blood to ice. A complex web of offshore transfers, totaling $50 million, initiated the very day Gabrielle had announced her pregnancy. Across the table, Gabrielle noticed his changed expression. "Ashley? What's wrong?" Her voice, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to carry hidden meanings, layers of deception he'd been too blind to see. "Just work," he managed, his voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside him. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." The lie felt bitter on his tongue, but he forced himself to smile, to raise his glass in their traditional anniversary toast. The expensive champagne tasted like ash. Gabrielle reached across the table, her fingers intertwining with his. Her wedding ring caught the candlelight, and Ashley remembered the day he'd proposed, on the rooftop of Gale Enterprises, the entire city spread out below them like a carpet of stars. She'd cried then, tears of joy. Now, looking at her beautiful face, he wondered how many other tears had been lies. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Ashley played his part, smiling at the right moments, responding to Gabrielle's stories about her AI ethics committee, but his mind was racing through every interaction she'd ever had with Kingston Wright. The brilliant researcher had joined their circle 2 years ago, his expertise in quantum encryption making him invaluable to both their companies. Ashley had even considered offering him a position at Gale Enterprises. As they drove home in their Tesla Model X, Gabriel dozed against his shoulder, trusting and vulnerable. The city lights played across her face, and for a moment, Ashley almost convinced himself the email was a mistake, a cruel joke, or a competitor's attempt to destabilize his company. But he knew better. He hadn't built an empire by ignoring evidence. The moment they arrived home, he made an excuse about urgent work and retreated to his home office. His fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating deep background checks, accessing security feeds, following the digital breadcrumbs that would either exonerate or condemn his wife. Riker responded to his urgent message within minutes. "I'm on it, boss. Give me 12 hours." The efficiency that had once been comforting now felt ominous. Later, Ashley would recognize this as the moment Riker's trap began to close around him. But for now, his oldest friend seemed like his only ally. Sleep was impossible. Ashley spent the night reviewing security footage, tracking financial transactions, and building a timeline of betrayal. Each discovery was another crack in the foundation of his marriage. The offshore account had been opened in the Cayman Islands, routed through shell companies that showed sophisticated planning. The hotel meetings coincided perfectly with his business trips. Even the pregnancy announcement aligned with suspicious transfers. Dawn found him still at his desk, tie loosened, eyes red from staring at screens. Gabrielle found him there, concern written across her face. "You never came to bed," she said softly, placing a cup of coffee beside him. The domestic gesture, so ordinary and loving, made his chest ache. "Had to finish some reports," he replied, unable to meet her eyes. She lingered for a moment, perhaps sensing the change in him, before leaving for her own office. The gentle click of the door behind her felt like a gunshot. Riker arrived an hour later, tablet in hand, his expression grim. "You'll want to see this privately," he said, glancing at the door as if expecting Gabrielle to burst in. The evidence he presented was damning. Surveillance photos, phone records, hotel receipts, all pointing to a long-term affair and corporate espionage. "Kingston Wright isn't just her lover," Riker explained, his voice carefully professional. "He's been accessing sensitive Gale Enterprises data through back doors in your shared home network. The pregnancy announcement coincided with a major data breach in our quantum computing division." Ashley stared at the proof of his worst fears, feeling the ground crumbling beneath him. Every late night at the office, every business dinner, every passionate discussion about AI ethics, had it all been cover for something darker? Unknown to Ashley, in an office across town, Winter Monroe was watching her plan unfold through carefully planted surveillance devices. The woman who posed as Gabrielle's devoted assistant allowed herself a small smile as she monitored Ashley's growing distress. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as planned. The evidence had been masterfully crafted. Winter had spent months building it, layer by layer, like a deadly spider web. The hotel footage was real but carefully edited, showing innocent meetings transformed into clandestine encounters through strategic cuts and angles. The financial records were false but virtually undetectable, created by hackers who specialized in corporate manipulation. Kingston Wright, the supposed other man, was actually Winter's half-brother, though neither Ashley nor Gabriel knew this. He was an unwitting pawn in her game, his legitimate business meetings with Gabriel twisted into something sinister. Winter had chosen him carefully, brilliant enough to be a plausible threat to Ashley's business, attractive enough to spark jealousy, and completely innocent of any wrongdoing. As morning turned to afternoon, Ashley's world continued to unravel. Every attempt to rationalize the evidence failed. His security team reported more suspicious activities, encrypted communications, unusual patterns in Gabriel's access to company servers, meetings that couldn't be explained by legitimate business. Riker played his part perfectly, expressing just the right mixture of loyalty and regret. "I've known something was wrong for weeks," he confided, "but I needed concrete proof before coming to you. You know how much I respect Gabriel." The lie rolled smoothly off his tongue, masking years of bitter jealousy. Riker had watched Ashley's rise to power from the shadows, playing the role of faithful friend while nursing a growing resentment. Winter had found him 6 months ago, offering him the chance to finally step out of Ashley's shadow. Together, they had orchestrated this elaborate dance of destruction. By evening, Ashley was drowning in evidence of betrayal, the weight of it pressed against his chest, making it hard to breathe. In his mind, he kept seeing Gabriel's face the moment she told him about the pregnancy, the joy in her eyes, the trembling of her hands. Had it all been an act? Was the child even his? The sound of Gabriel's car pulling into the driveway sent him into a panic. He wasn't ready for this confrontation, wasn't ready to face the woman he loved and ask her if their entire relationship had been a lie. But ready or not, the moment of truth had arrived. She found him in his office, surrounded by digital evidence of her supposed betrayal. The look of confusion on her face seemed so genuine that for a moment he almost believed in her innocence. But the photos were there, the records undeniable, the proof overwhelming. "Ashley!" Her voice wavered as she took in his expression. "What's wrong? You've been acting strange all day." He turned his tablet toward her, displaying the first photo. The color drained from her face as she recognized herself entering the Lotus Hotel. "I can explain," she began, but Ashley was already pulling up more evidence, each revelation like a knife twisting in his gut. The confrontation that followed would replay in his mind countless times in the months to come. Her desperate denials, his cold accusations, the way her hands shook as she tried to explain meetings that looked damning out of context. But in that moment, all he could see was betrayal. All he could feel was the shattering of trust. As the sun set over Houston, casting long shadows through the office windows, Ashley Gale's perfect world crumbled to dust. In an office across town, Winter Monroe smiled as she watched through hidden cameras, knowing that her revenge was only beginning, and somewhere between truth and lies, between love and betrayal, a story was unfolding that would test the very limits of redemption. Chapter 3. The Serpent's Kiss. Winter Monroe sat in her minimalist apartment on the 40th floor of Houston's exclusive Marcus Tower, watching 6 different screens with clinical precision. Each displayed a different aspect of her carefully orchestrated destruction of Ashley and Gabrielle Gale. The morning sun cast long shadows across her sophisticated surveillance setup, a testament to years of planning and patience. She rolled the crystal tumbler in her hand, ice clinking against glass, remembering the day her father, Thomas Winters, had taken his life. She'd been Aurora Winters then, a 19-year-old watching her family's legacy crumble under Ashley Gale's ruthless acquisition. The memory of finding her father in his study, The heavy scent of gunpowder still hanging in the air had shaped every decision since that moment. Everything proceeding as planned. Kingston's voice came through her secure line, tinged with uncertainty. Her half-brother, brilliant but soft-hearted, was the only loose end that worried her. He didn't know his role in her revenge, didn't understand how she'd manipulated his innocent meetings with Gabrielle into something sinister. "Perfect timing," Winter replied, her voice honey-smooth. "Ashley spent the entire night reviewing our little care package. The seeds of doubt are firmly planted." She pulled up the feed from Gabrielle's office, where her target sat unaware that her closest confidant was orchestrating her downfall. The transformation from Aurora Winters to Winter Monroe had been methodical. She'd erased her old identity through a complex web of digital manipulation, creating a new persona with an impeccable background in executive assistance. Getting hired as Gabrielle's assistant had been almost too easy. Her qualifications were outstanding, her references impeccable, and her interview performance flawless. For the past year, she'd been the perfect assistant. She anticipated Gabrielle's needs, managed her schedule with precision, and became her closest confidant. Every lunch together, every late-night work session, every personal conversation was another strand in her web. She learned Gabrielle's hopes, fears, and vulnerabilities. Ammunition for the destruction to come. "The pregnancy complicates things," Kingston said, his voice tight with concern. He'd grown fond of Gabrielle during their collaborations on AI security protocols. "She's 7 weeks along, Winter. The stress could—" "The pregnancy makes it perfect," Winter cut him off, her voice sharp. "Nothing hurts more than doubting the paternity of your own child. Ashley's already spiraling, questioning everything, and Gabrielle—" She smiled, watching her target on the screen. "She's about to have her world torn apart." The plan had taken shape over years. Winter had watched Ashley build Gale Enterprises into a tech empire, studying his patterns, his weaknesses, his blind spots. The hostile takeover that destroyed her family had taught her valuable lessons about corporate warfare. But this wasn't about business. This was personal. Finding Riker Chase had been a stroke of luck. Ashley's head of security harbored deep resentment toward his longtime friend, a festering wound of jealousy hidden beneath years of loyal service. Winter had recognized a kindred spirit in his bitterness. Their partnership, sealed in secret meetings and encrypted communications, gave her access to Gale Enterprises' internal systems. On her main screen, Winter pulled up the morning's news feeds. Technology blogs were already buzzing with rumors about instability at Gale Enterprises. The carefully leaked hints about security breaches and corporate espionage were taking root. The stock had dropped 3 points since opening. "Kingston," she said, her voice softening with practiced manipulation. "You understand what's at stake, don't you? Ashley Gale destroyed our family. He built his empire on the ruins of others' dreams. This isn't just revenge, it's justice." Her half-brother's silence spoke volumes. Kingston Wright had only learned of their shared parentage 6 months ago, when Winter revealed that Thomas Winters had fathered him during a brief affair. The revelation had shaken him, but not enough to fully embrace Winter's vendetta. She needed to keep him uncertain, conflicted, but not rebellious. "Just stick to the plan," she continued. "Your meetings with Gabrielle are essential to the narrative. The board needs to believe that corporate secrets are being leaked through personal intimacy." She didn't mention that Kingston's reluctance had led her to develop contingency plans. If necessary, her half-brother could become another tragic victim in this story. Across town in Gabrielle's office, Winter's phone buzzed with a message. Her target needed her, another opportunity to play the role of supportive friend. She checked her appearance in the mirror, adjusting her mask of concerned devotion. The elevator ride to Gabrielle's office gave her time to appreciate the intricate nature of her plan. The evidence against Gabrielle was masterful, real events twisted into damning implications. The hotel meetings had been legitimate business discussions about AI security protocols, but carefully edited security footage transformed them into clandestine encounters. Financial transactions were fabricated with artful precision, backdated and routed through untraceable channels. Gabrielle looked up as Winter entered, her eyes red from crying. "He won't answer my calls," she said, her voice breaking. "Ashley's convinced I've betrayed him, and I don't even understand how this happened." Winter moved to embrace her, playing the part of concerned friend perfectly. "Tell me everything," she soothed, even as she noted every detail of Gabrielle's distress for later analysis. The woman who had unknowingly married her father's destroyer was crumbling exactly as planned. "The evidence he showed me," Gabriel continued, one hand protectively over her pregnant belly. "It looks real, but it's all wrong. Those meetings with Kingston were about the new AI security framework. The hotel, we needed neutral ground to discuss potential vulnerabilities in quantum encryption, but Ashley won't listen." Winter made appropriate sympathetic noises while inwardly savoring each word. Phase 2 was proceeding perfectly, the isolation of her target from potential support systems. Soon, she would suggest that Gabriel stay with her, away from the mansion where Ashley's anger made every moment unbearable. "What about the financial transfers?" Winter asked innocently, knowing this piece of evidence was particularly damning. "Could someone have accessed your accounts?" Gabriel's face crumpled further. "I've never seen those transactions before. They look like they came from my accounts, but I never authorized them. None of this makes sense." She paused, a flash of her brilliant mind showing through the emotional chaos. "Unless someone's orchestrating this. But who would want to destroy our marriage?" Winter kept her expression concerned, while appreciation for her own artistry surged through her. The financial trail she'd created was flawless. Even the best forensic accountants would struggle to prove it false. "Have you considered hiring a private investigator?" she suggested, knowing this would lead exactly where she wanted. In her apartment, screens continued monitoring every aspect of her plan. Riker was feeding Ashley a steady stream of manufactured evidence. The board of Gale Enterprises was receiving anonymous tips about security breaches. Kingston's legitimate research collaboration with Gabriel was being transformed into a scandal that would rock Houston's tech community. But Winter's true masterpiece was psychological. Every piece of evidence, every planted doubt, every manipulated image was designed to trigger Ashley's deepest insecurities. The poor boy from San Antonio, who'd clawed his way to billions, would always fear losing everything. She was teaching him that his fears were justified. As she comforted Gabrielle, Winter allowed herself to remember the last conversation she'd had with her father. Thomas Winters had been excited about new breakthroughs in quantum computing, certain they would save his company. He hadn't known that Ashley Gale had already set the wheels of destruction in motion. The next day, he'd faced the board, learned about the hostile takeover, and made his final decision. "We'll figure this out," Winter promised Gabriel, her voice warm with false friendship. "Whatever it takes, I'm here for you." The irony of her words would have made her laugh if she weren't so committed to her performance. On her phone, another message flashed, Riker confirming the next phase of their plan. Soon, the story of Gabriel's supposed betrayal would leak to select media outlets. Houston's elite would whisper about the brilliant wife who'd used her pregnancy to cover corporate espionage. The glass empire Ashley had built would crack under the weight of scandal and suspicion. Winter held Gabrielle as she cried, plotting her next moves with the cold precision that had defined her life since her father's death. Revenge, she had learned, was best served not cold, but with a poisoned smile and a helping hand. The serpent's kiss was deadliest when disguised as comfort. Outside Gabrielle's office windows, Houston's skyline shimmered in the midday sun, glass towers reflecting light like mirrors reflecting truth, distorted, fragmentary, and ultimately deceiving. Winter Monroe, once Aurora Winters, allowed herself a small smile. The destruction of Ashley and Gabrielle Gale was more than revenge. It was art, and she was just beginning her masterpiece. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. The Houston Museum of Fine Arts Grand Ballroom pulsed with Houston's elite for the Tech Innovation Charity Gala. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across diamond necklaces, and Rolex watches, as the city's wealthiest, tried to outshine each other. But tonight they would witness something far more dramatic than their usual social sparring. Gabrielle entered alone, her emerald gown a masterpiece of deception, carefully designed by Winter to hide her 7-month pregnancy while making her look vulnerable. Social media influencers immediately began live-streaming her arrival, their phones capturing every detail of her isolation. "Mrs. Gale," whispered conversations followed her path. "Did you hear about—" "I heard the board is meeting tomorrow. My broker says Gale Enterprises stock is already shaking." Winter watched from her strategic position near the bar, noting how her carefully planted rumors had already taken root. She had spent weeks preparing this moment, ensuring every major tech blogger and financial reporter in Texas would be present. Ashley's arrival created an electric tension in the room. He moved through the crowd like an approaching storm, Riker shadowing his steps. The whispers intensified, phones raised like a forest of gleaming rectangles, everyone sensing the impending drama. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event chairman's voice cut through the murmur, "Mr. Ashley Gale has requested to make an announcement." The crowd parted as Ashley strode to the small stage. Above him, massive screens displayed the gala's branding, soon to become the perfect backdrop for his public destruction of his marriage. Winter had hacked them hours ago, ready to display her fabricated evidence. "I believe in transparency." Ashley's voice carried cold fury. "In business and in life, tonight I'm announcing an internal investigation into corporate espionage at Gale Enterprises." The screens behind him flickered to life, displaying surveillance photos, financial records, and incriminating emails. Each piece of evidence had been masterfully crafted by Winter, timed to appear as Ashley spoke. "My wife, Gabrielle Bassett Gale," he continued, his voice catching slightly, "and her colleague, Kingston Wright, are under investigation for theft of proprietary technology and breach of corporate security." The room erupted in gasps and camera clicks. Live streams exploded with viewers as Houston's social media elite captured every moment. Winter's planted influencers began spreading pre-prepared hashtags, hashtag GaleGate, hashtag TechBetrayal, hashtag HoustonScandal. "That's a lie!" Gabrielle's voice cut through the chaos. She moved toward the stage with dignified grace, even as phones tracked her every step. "Ashley, someone is manipulating you. This is all orchestrated." The screens above shifted to display financial transactions, Winter's masterwork of digital forgery. The timestamp of the largest transfer matched exactly with Gabrielle's pregnancy announcement. "Manipulated?" Ashley's laugh was bitter. "Like these transfers? $50 million, moved the day you told me about the baby." His voice dropped to a devastating whisper, perfectly picked up by the microphones. "Is the child even mine?" The question exploded across social media. Gale Air started trending instantly. Winter watched as her carefully crafted narrative went viral in real time. Gabrielle swayed, one hand going to her forehead. The emerald gown suddenly seemed to suffocate her. "How dare you!" Her voice shook with rage and pain. "This baby is yours, Ashley. Everything you think you've discovered is a lie." The room spun around her, the lights becoming too bright, the air too thin. Winter observed with calculated concern as her target pressed a hand to her temple. The moment was perfect, more dramatic than she could have orchestrated. Gabrielle collapsed in slow motion, her gown spreading like spilled paint across the marble floor. 100 phones captured her fall from different angles, the footage instantly spreading across every social platform. Ashley's face transformed from anger to terror. He leaped from the stage, but Kingston reached her first. The optics were exactly what Winter had planned, the suspected lover coming to Gabrielle's aid, while her husband stood frozen by pride. As paramedics rushed in, their efficient movements created a surreal scene against the backdrop of evening wear and champagne glasses. The contrast was cinematic, emergency medical care amid crystal and caviar. "Go with her," Kingston urged Ashley. "Whatever you believe about us, she's carrying your child." The words hung in the air as Ashley made his choice. With Riker whispering in his ear about media management and corporate optics, he stepped back. He let the paramedics take Gabrielle away alone, a decision that would haunt him far longer than any business failure. Within hours, every major news outlet in Texas had the story. Winter's carefully crafted narrative spread across the globe. Tech power couple implodes at charity gala, pregnancy, betrayal, and corporate espionage. Houston's perfect marriage shatters on social media. The glass walls of the museum reflected the chaos within, fracturing the scene into 1,000 glittering pieces. Tomorrow, the stock market would open to uncertainty, corporate rivals would sense weakness, and Houston's social hierarchy would begin to shift. But tonight, as the ambulance sirens faded into the distance, Ashley Gale stood alone in a room full of witnesses, his empire starting to crumble, not realizing that every decision he had just made was orchestrated by a woman who had spent years planning this exact moment of his destruction. Chapter 5. Phoenix Rising, Hurricane. Isabella bore down on Houston with unprecedented fury, its winds howling like a goddess scorned. The timing was almost poetic, nature's rage matching the storm in Gabrielle's life as her labor began 2 weeks early. The city had already begun evacuating its low-lying areas, but Texas Memorial Hospital stood firm, its generators humming in anticipation of the inevitable power loss. Gabrielle gripped the hospital bed rails, another contraction racking her body. Winter stood beside her, playing the role of devoted friend perfectly, while inwardly savoring every moment of her target's distress. The monitor's steady beeping tracked 2 heartbeats. The twins had been a surprise discovery during her collapse at the gala, a complication that Winter had quickly incorporated into her plans. "Has anyone reached Ashley?" Gabrielle gasped between contractions. The question hung in the air like the pressure front of the approaching storm. Winter had ensured that all messages to Ashley were mysteriously delayed or lost, isolating Gabrielle at her most vulnerable moment. "I've tried everything," Winter lied smoothly, her hand cool against Gabrielle's forehead. "His secretary says he's in emergency board meetings about the company's stock decline." In truth, Ashley was across town, drowning in fabricated evidence and media speculation, while Riker kept him too busy to notice the messages about his wife's condition. The storm intensified, raindrops attacking the windows like bullets. The hospital lights flickered ominously as another contraction seized Gabrielle. The medical team moved with practiced efficiency, monitoring both mother and babies with increasing concern. The twins' heart rates had begun to show slight irregularities. "Mrs. Gael," Dr. Martinez said, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. "We need to consider an emergency C-section. The stress is affecting the babies, and with the hurricane—" A massive thunderclap punctuated her words, and the hospital lights gave out completely. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, casting everything in a surreal amber glow. Gabrielle nodded, tears mixing with sweat on her face. This wasn't how she'd imagined bringing her children into the world. Alone, branded as unfaithful, while a hurricane raged outside. Winter stepped into the hallway, ostensibly to make more calls, actually to savor the moment. Her revenge was taking on dimensions she hadn't anticipated. The twins complicated things beautifully. Two innocent lives that would forever bear the scars of their parents' destroyed marriage. The hospital PA system crackled with updates about the hurricane. Isabella had strengthened to Category 4, its eye wall now battering Houston's defenses. The city that had witnessed Gabrielle's public humiliation was being brought to its knees by nature's fury, as if the universe itself was underlining the drama of the moment. In the operating room, under the harsh emergency lighting, Dr. Martinez worked with focus that belied the chaos outside. The first baby emerged into the storm-racked world with a powerful cry. "A boy!" the doctor announced, holding him up briefly before passing him to the waiting nurses. "Phoenix," Gabrielle whispered, the name she'd chosen months ago when she still believed in resurrection from ashes. Moments later, his sister arrived, smaller but equally vocal. Rain, Gabrielle named her, matching the tempest that heralded her birth. Winter recorded everything on her phone, seemingly the actions of a devoted friend preserving precious memories. In reality, she was documenting her triumph. The woman who had unknowingly married her father's destroyer, giving birth alone while a hurricane ravaged the city. The babies were whisked away to the NICU for observation, their small bodies perfect despite the stress of their arrival. Gabrielle, exhausted and emotional, reached for her phone again. "They're so beautiful, Ashley," she whispered as she typed a message she wasn't sure would reach him. "They need their father." Outside the hospital windows, Houston buckled under Isabella's assault. Trees bent like bowstrings, power lines danced dangerous tangos, and the streets became swift-moving rivers. Inside, machines beeped steadily, monitoring Gabrielle's recovery while Winter maintained her vigil, always watching, always recording. News crews braved the hurricane to report on the dramatic birth. Within hours, despite the storm, social media buzzed with updates. The twins' arrival added a new dimension to the scandal. Some sympathizing with the abandoned mother, others questioning the children's paternity, all of it carefully orchestrated by Winter's media contacts. In his office across town, Ashley finally received word of the births. The news hit him like a physical blow, made worse by the realization that he'd missed one of the most important moments of his life. The doubt that had begun at the gala grew stronger, warring with his anger and wounded pride. "Those are your children," Kingston had said before disappearing after the gala, his voice heavy with accusation. The words haunted Ashley now, as he stared at the message notification, unable to bring himself to read Gabrielle's text. The hurricane raged through the night, its winds carrying away the last vestiges of Houston's normalcy. In the hospital's NICU, Phoenix and Rain Gale slept peacefully, unaware of the storms, both natural and emotional, that surrounded their arrival. Gabrielle drifted in and out of consciousness, her dreams filled with memories of happier times with Ashley. Winter stayed through it all, her mask-like face perfect in its display of concern and support. She sent regular updates to her hidden surveillance hub, where every detail was archived for future use. The twins would become another weapon in her arsenal, their birth story another chapter in the tragedy she was writing. As dawn broke over a ravaged Houston, the hurricane finally began to weaken. The city emerged into grey light, streets flooded, trees uprooted, buildings damaged. But Texas Memorial Hospital stood firm, its walls protecting the newest members of the Gale family, children born into a storm of betrayal and lies, named for resurrection and tempest. In her private moments, Winter allowed herself to imagine Thomas Winters watching from wherever he was. Would he appreciate the poetry of his grandchildren being born during a hurricane? Would he understand that their very existence was both a culmination of her revenge and a complication she hadn't fully anticipated? The twins represented something unexpected in Winter's careful plans, a legacy that would carry the weight of this moment forward through time. Phoenix and Rain Gale, born in a storm of lies and redemption, would forever be living reminders of both destruction and possibility. As Houston began its recovery from Isabella's fury, Winter Monroe watched the sunrise through rain-streaked windows, her cold smile hidden from the world. The storm had given her an unexpected gift, a dramatic backdrop for the next phase of her revenge. The twins' birth would become part of Houston legend, their story intertwined with both natural disaster and human tragedy. In the NICU, Phoenix and Rain slept on, their tiny hands occasionally reaching for each other across the space between their incubators. They were survivors already, born into chaos yet thriving despite it. Winter watched them through the nursery window, her calculating mind already spinning their existence into the next act of her elaborate revenge. The storm had passed, but its effects would linger in broken trees, flooded streets, and shattered lives. Like the hurricane that marked their birth, Phoenix and Rain Gale had arrived as forces of nature themselves, powerful enough to shift the course of Winter's perfect plan, yet vulnerable enough to break her heart, if she still had one to break. Chapter 6. The Warrior's Heart. Adeline Blackwood stood in her converted warehouse office in Houston's East End, studying the evidence wall with the same intensity she'd once used to analyze battlefield intelligence in Afghanistan. At 42, she carried herself with the unmistakable bearing of someone who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer and chosen to fight it anyway. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, earned as much from experience as age. The Gale case hadn't come to her through normal channels. She'd been investigating a series of corporate terrorism incidents when she'd noticed an anomaly, perfectly crafted digital footprints that were just a little too perfect. Winter Monroe's background checked out flawlessly, which to Adeline's trained eye was the biggest red flag of all. "Run it again," she instructed her AI system, a custom-built network she'd developed during her military intelligence days. The holographic display flickered, showing timeline annotations floating in the air around her. Every piece of evidence against Gabrielle Gale was immaculate, and that's precisely what had caught Adeline's attention. Her office reflected her unique approach to investigation. One wall was dedicated to conventional evidence, photographs, documents, and financial records. The opposite wall displayed real-time data streams, monitoring social media reactions and news coverage of the Gale scandal. The center of the room held her pride and joy, a quantum-enhanced processing unit that could detect patterns human analysts might miss. Adeline's fingers danced through the holographic display, manipulating data points. "Show me Kingston Wright's movements the day of the hotel meeting." The timeline shifted, revealing something curious. Kingston's cell phone GPS showed him entering the Lotus Hotel at 2:15 p.m., but the security footage timestamp read 2:10 p.m. 5 minutes, she muttered, reaching for her ever-present coffee mug. Why would someone alter timestamp metadata by just 5 minutes? She'd seen similar subtle discrepancies in terrorist communication patterns, small changes that created windows of deniability. The investigation had started 3 weeks ago, when she'd been hired by Gabriel's sister, Jasmine Bassett, to look into the corporate espionage allegations. Jasmine had been skeptical of the charges from the beginning, but it was her description of Winter Monroe that had really piqued Adeline's interest. "She's too perfect," Jasmine had said during their first meeting. "She anticipates everything Gabriel needs, knows exactly what to say, how to help. It's like she's been preparing for this role her whole life." Adeline's military experience had taught her that perfect performances usually masked perfect deception. She'd spent 6 years in military intelligence before an IED in Kandahar had led to her medical discharge. The same explosion that had left her with a slight limp had also given her a gift, an unwavering determination to find truth buried under lies. Her quantum processor hummed as it analyzed Winter Monroe's digital footprint. Adeline had programmed it to look for patterns that shouldn't exist. The kind of consistency that indicated artificial construction rather than organic development. Cross-reference all hotel security footage with raw traffic camera feeds, she commanded. The AI complied, splitting the holographic display into multiple streams. Adeline's eyes narrowed as she spotted another anomaly. The traffic camera showed a delivery truck blocking the hotel entrance at 2:12 p.m., but in the security footage used as evidence against Gabriel, the entrance was clear. "Got you," she whispered. Someone had edited the security footage, but they hadn't thought to alter the municipal traffic cameras. It was the kind of mistake that came from hubris, believing your plan was too perfect to need such minute details. Her phone buzzed, a text from one of her contacts in Houston's ethical hacking community. They'd found something interesting in the metadata of the financial transfer records, the transactions showing $50 million moving through Gabriel's accounts had perfect blockchain verification, but the encryption signatures showed microscopic variations consistent with quantum forgery. Adeline pulled up the hospital records from the twins' birth. The hurricane had provided perfect cover for someone to access the hospital systems. Power fluctuations during the storm had created gaps in the security logs, gaps that a skilled hacker could have exploited. "Show me Winter Monroe's movements during the hurricane." The holographic display shifted, but something was wrong. During the critical hours of the storm, Winter's digital footprint became too crisp, too clear. In a hurricane that had knocked out half of Houston's surveillance network, her movements were documented with suspicious precision. A deeper scan revealed the truth. Winter Monroe didn't exist before 3 years ago. Her background was an elaborate digital construct, built with the kind of skill Adeline had only seen in high-level intelligence operations. Someone had spent years creating this identity, crafting it specifically for infiltration. Adeline's prosthetic knee ached as she paced the room, a habit from her military days when she was piecing together terrorist networks. This was different from corporate espionage. The level of planning, the attention to detail, the psychological warfare, this was personal. Kingston Wright's death in a suspicious car accident 3 days after the gala added another layer to the mystery. Adeline pulled up the accident report, noting inconsistencies that the investigating officers had missed. The brake lines hadn't failed naturally, they'd been cut with surgical precision. Cross-reference Winter Monroe's known associates with Gale Enterprises employees. The AI processed the request, generating a web of connections. One name blinked red: Riker Chase, Ashley's head of security. Adeline leaned closer, studying the pattern of communications between them. Encrypted messages, brief meetings in locations chosen to avoid surveillance, a pattern that suggested collaboration rather than coincidence. But it was something else that made her instincts scream. She pulled up historical records of Gale Enterprises' early days, specifically the hostile takeovers that had built Ashley's empire. One name caught her attention: Thomas Winters, CEO of a quantum computing firm that Gale had acquired. Winters had committed suicide shortly after losing his company. "Show me Thomas Winters' family records." The display shifted, revealing a daughter, Aurora Winters, who had disappeared from public record shortly after her father's death. Adeline stared at the graduation photo of Aurora Winters, taken months before her father's suicide. The bone structure, the set of the jaw, the calculating look in the eyes. "Facial recognition analysis," she commanded. "Compare Aurora Winters' age progressed to Winter Monroe." The AI overlaid the images, calculating points of comparison. The match was over 98%. As dawn approached, Adeline's quantum processor flagged a new alert. Winter Monroe had just accessed the hospital's administrative systems, pulling up the twins' medical records. The timestamp showed 5:47 a.m., an odd hour for a personal assistant to be checking medical files. Adeline initiated a real-time surveillance track. Through her enhanced systems, she watched Winter moving through the hospital corridors with practiced ease. But there was something different in her bearing, a tension that hadn't been there before. Minutes later, Riker Chase entered the hospital through a side entrance. Adeline's military instincts kicked into high gear. This wasn't their usual pattern. Something was about to happen. She made 2 quick calls, one to hospital security using her old military credentials, another to Jasmine Bassett, warning her to get to the hospital immediately. As she strapped on her prosthetic leg brace and checked her sidearm, her AI system continued tracking Winter and Riker's movements. They had converged in a service corridor near the NICU, their body language suggesting an argument. Adeline's lip-reading software caught fragments of their conversation. Not part of the plan. Perfect opportunity. Too risky. Racing through Houston's early morning streets in her modified Tesla, Adeline pieced together their likely plan. Winter wasn't going to harm the twins. She was going to take them. Recent property records showed she'd purchased a secluded estate outside Houston through shell companies. She was planning to raise Ashley's children as her own, the ultimate act of revenge. Adeline reached the hospital just as the NICU security system went into diagnostic mode, disabling cameras and electronic locks. Using her military ID, she moved swiftly through the corridors, her enhanced leg brace compensating for her combat injury. The backup generator kicked in, bathing everything in emergency red lighting. Adeline drew her weapon, moving toward the sound of a service door opening. The moment had come to end Winter's elaborate revenge plot before it claimed 2 more innocent victims. Behind her, dawn painted Houston's skyline in shades of promise and threat, the city unknowingly holding its breath as another storm gathered in its heart, not of wind and rain this time, but of truth and consequence. Chapter 7. Web of Deceit. The NICU's emergency lighting cast everything in a blood-red glow as Adeline Blackwood moved silently through the corridor, her military training taking over. Her enhanced prosthetic leg made no sound on the polished hospital floor as she approached the unit's main entrance. Through her earpiece, her AI system continued tracking Winter and Riker's movements in real time. Winter Monroe, or rather Aurora Winters, had positioned herself near the twins' incubators, playing the role of concerned assistant, even as she prepared to execute her plan. Riker Chase had secured the service corridor, ensuring their escape route remained clear. They had chosen their moment perfectly: shift change, minimal staff, and systems conveniently down for maintenance. Adeline's quantum processor analyzed the hospital's floor plan, identifying possible extraction routes. Her military experience told her Winter would have multiple contingency plans. Someone methodical enough to spend years crafting a false identity wouldn't leave anything to chance. The soft beeping of medical equipment provided cover as Adeline accessed the NICU's secondary entrance. Through the window, she could see Winter checking the twins' charts, her movements precise and practiced. Phoenix and Rain Gale slept peacefully, unaware of the drama unfolding around them. "Security teams in position," crackled a voice in Adeline's earpiece. She had deployed hospital security strategically, blocking potential escape routes without alerting Winter to their presence. But something felt wrong. Winter's plan seemed too obvious, too easily countered. A new alert flashed across Adeline's tactical display. Her AI had detected an unauthorized access to the hospital's pharmaceutical database. Winter wasn't just planning to take the twins, she was setting up a diversion. "Check all other pediatric patients," Adeline whispered into her comm unit. "She's going to trigger a medical emergency somewhere else in the hospital." The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. Winter had accessed not just the twins' records, but those of every child in the pediatric ward. She could cause a hospital-wide crisis with a few keystrokes, drawing away security and medical personnel. Inside the NICU, Winter moved with deliberate slowness, maintaining her cover as the devoted assistant. But Adeline's enhanced optical sensors detected subtle tells. The slight tension in her shoulders, the carefully controlled breathing pattern of someone preparing for action. Riker's voice carried faintly through the door. "Systems are ready. We have 12 minutes before the backup protocols engage." Winter's response was too soft to hear, but her body language spoke volumes. She was reaching for something in her pocket. Not a weapon, but a small device that Adeline's sensors identified as a quantum encryption key. "All teams hold position," Adeline commanded. "She's about to make her move, but not for the twins, not yet." As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the pediatric ward. Winter had triggered her diversion, medical equipment across multiple floors showing critical failures. Staff rushed to respond, exactly as she had planned. But Adeline had seen similar tactics in war zones. The obvious crisis was rarely the real threat. Her AI was already scanning deeper patterns, looking for Winter's true objective. The answer came in a burst of encrypted data. Winter wasn't just trying to take the twins. She was attempting to access Gale Enterprises' quantum computing core through the hospital's network. The babies were both bait and bonus. Her real target was the destruction of Ashley's company from within. Adeline's tactical display lit up with new information. The financial records she'd been investigating weren't just forgeries. They were sophisticated quantum algorithms designed to corrupt Gale Enterprises' entire digital infrastructure. Winter had planted them like time bombs throughout the system. "Server room," Adeline commanded her team. "She needs direct access to the hospital's main data hub." The medical emergencies were a smokescreen. Winter's true goal required physical connection to the hospital's network. Through the NICU window, Adeline watched Winter check her phone, presumably confirming the chaos her diversions had caused. But there was something else in her expression, a flash of genuine emotion when she looked at the twins. That's when Adeline saw what others had missed. Winter wasn't just seeking revenge, she was trying to recreate her own lost family. The twins represented both vengeance and redemption, a chance to raise children as her father might have raised her, if Ashley Gale hadn't destroyed their lives. The hospital's backup generators hummed as Winter initiated her primary sequence. On Adeline's tactical display, digital attacks began hitting Gale Enterprises' firewalls. Each breach attempt carried Winter's signature perfectionism, elegant code designed to slip through quantum encryption like a ghost. Riker moved to secure the hallway, his military training evident in his positioning. But Adeline had served in worse conditions against better operators. She signaled her teams to hold position while she accessed the hospital's environmental controls through her quantum processor. "Time to introduce some chaos into your perfect plan," she whispered, triggering a cascading failure in the climate control system. Emergency protocols forced all security doors to close, temporarily sealing each section of the hospital. Winter's reaction was immediate and revealing. She didn't move toward the twins as expected, but instead pulled out her quantum key, desperately trying to maintain her connection to the hospital's network. "Got you?" Adeline smiled grimly. Winter had revealed her priority. The digital attack had to be completed from this location, using the hospital's systems as a proxy to hide her infiltration of Gale Enterprises. The next few moments were a blur of action. Adeline burst through the door, just as Winter realized she'd been trapped. Riker, caught off guard by the security doors, was isolated in the hallway. "Aurora Winters," Adeline called out, her weapon trained steadily. "Or do you prefer Winter Monroe? Your father's quantum encryption algorithms were brilliant, by the way. I recognized them in your attack code." Winter's composure cracked for the first time in years. "You know nothing about my father," she snarled, her perfect assistant's mask falling away. "About what Gale did to him, to our family." "I know enough," Adeline replied, moving to block Winter's access to both the twins and the network terminal. "I know you've spent years planning this revenge, created an entirely new identity, earned Gabrielle's trust, all to destroy Ashley the same way you believe he destroyed your father." Winter's laugh was bitter and broken. "Believe? He drove my father to suicide, stole his life's work, built his empire on our ruins." Her hand moved toward her pocket. "And now I'll show him how it feels to lose everything." Adeline's enhanced reflexes allowed her to see Winter's true target, not a weapon, but a dead man's switch. If she activated it, every piece of fabricated evidence would be released to the media simultaneously, along with corrupted versions of Gale Enterprises' proprietary data. "Think about the twins," Adeline said softly. "They're innocent in this, just like you were innocent in your father's corporate wars." Something flickered in Winter's eyes, a moment of hesitation. The twins chose that moment to stir, one of them letting out a soft cry. Winter's gaze was drawn to them, and Adeline saw the conflict raging behind her carefully constructed facade. "You didn't just want revenge," Adeline pressed her advantage. "You wanted justice, but there's no justice in hurting innocent children." Outside in the hallway, Riker was trying to override the security doors. The hospital systems were in chaos as Winter's diversions collided with Adeline's countermeasures. But in the NICU, time seemed to stand still as two women faced each other across a moral chasm. Winter's hand tightened on the dead man's switch. "You don't understand. This was never just about revenge. It's about correction. Ashley Gale built his success on destroying others. He needs to understand the cost." "And what's the cost to you?" Adeline asked. "Your father's quantum algorithms were meant to advance science, not destroy lives. Is this really how you want to honor his legacy?" The question hit home. Winter's perfect composure cracked further, revealing the wounded daughter beneath the vengeful strategist. The dead man's switch trembled in her hand. In that moment of vulnerability, Adeline made her move. Her prosthetic legs' enhanced servos propelled her forward with superhuman speed. Before Winter could react, the switch was knocked from her hand, skittering across the floor as both women grappled for control. Winter fought with the desperate strength of someone seeing years of planning unravel. But Adeline had fought in real wars, against enemies who had everything to lose. The struggle was brief but intense. As hospital security finally breached the doors, Adeline had Winter pinned, the years of perfectly constructed deception crumbling into dust. Riker, seeing the situation lost, attempted to flee but was quickly apprehended. The twins slept through it all, peaceful in their incubators. Phoenix and Rain Guile would never know how close they came to being pawns in a game of revenge and redemption. As she secured Winter for arrest, Adeline couldn't help but feel a twist of sympathy. The woman had spent years building an elaborate web of deceit, all to avenge a father who would probably have been horrified by what his death had turned his daughter into. Dawn was breaking over Houston, its light replacing the red emergency glow. In its harsh clarity, Winter Monroe finally surrendered to reality, her perfect mask cracking completely to reveal Aurora Winters, the grieving daughter who had lost her way in the pursuit of justice. Chapter 8. Shattered Illusions. Alarms blared through Gale Enterprises as Ashley burst into the Quantum Security Center, Adeline close behind him. The holographic displays cast an eerie blue glow across the room, showing real-time breaches in their systems. Winter's deception was unraveling, but she had left deadly traps in their network. "There!" Adeline's fingers flew across the quantum interface, pulling up the original hotel security footage. "Watch the timestamp," The video played on the main screen, showing the 5-minute discrepancy that had started everything. A delivery truck appeared, blocking the entrance, missing from Winter's doctored version. She edited the footage. Ashley's voice was hoarse. All this time. Not just edited. Adeline split the screen, showing dozens of camera feeds simultaneously. She constructed an entire false narrative. Look at the traffic cameras, the satellite imagery, the bank's security feeds. She built a perfect lie by manipulating the gaps between truths. The quantum processors hummed as they processed more evidence. Financial records materialized in the air around them. The supposed transfers that had damned Gabrielle. Under Adeline's enhanced analysis, the forgery became clear. Microscopic variations in the quantum signatures proved they were fabricated. Kingston Wright's death wasn't an accident. Adeline pulled up the crash analysis. The brake lines were cut with surgical precision. He was trying to warn you about Winter's true identity. A new alert flashed red across the displays. Winter's failsafes had detected their investigation and were beginning to activate. Files started deleting themselves, evidence vanishing before their eyes. "No!" Ashley lunged for the control panel. "Save what you can!" Adeline's hands became a blur over the holographic controls. The quantum encryption is fighting back. She used her father's algorithms, Thomas Winter's original work. The same technology you acquired in that hostile takeover. The name hit Ashley like a physical blow. On a secondary screen, Thomas Winter's face appeared. Brilliant, proud, destroyed. The article about his suicide filled the display, accompanied by corporate records showing how Ashley had systematically dismantled the man's life's work. "Aurora Winters." Adeline's voice cut through his shock. "That's Winter Monroe's real identity, Thomas Winter's daughter. She spent years planning this revenge, creating the perfect cover identity. Everything about Winter Monroe was constructed to infiltrate your life and destroy it from within." The security system wailed as more fail-safes triggered. On the screens, years of corporate data began corrupting. Winter's revenge extended beyond their marriage. She was trying to destroy his entire empire. The twins, Ashley suddenly realized. If she's Aurora Winters, then... His words were cut off by another alarm. The hospital's security feeds appeared on screen, showing Winter accessing the NICU wing. She moved with purpose, no longer playing the role of devoted assistant. "She's making her move." Adeline activated her tactical comm unit. "The twins aren't just collateral damage, they're her final target. Taking your children would complete her revenge against the man who destroyed her family." Ashley was already moving, rushing toward the elevator. "How long?" "Minutes, maybe less. She has help inside the hospital. Riker's signature just cleared security." The revelation stopped Ashley cold. "Riker?" "My head of security." Adeline pulled up personnel files as they ran. "DNA analysis confirms it. He's your half-brother, your father's illegitimate son with Catherine Chase. He's been working with Winter from the start, driven by his own need for revenge." They reached Ashley's private elevator, descending at maximum speed. On Adeline's portable displays, they watched Winter and Riker converging on the NICU from different directions. Their movements showed military precision. This was a carefully planned extraction. "All those years," Ashley's voice was raw. "Every takeover Riker helped me plan, every company we acquired. He was watching, waiting, helping build the empire just to help tear it down." "Focus," Adeline commanded as they reached the garage. "Winter isn't just taking the twins. Her quantum virus is set to destroy your company's entire infrastructure. She wants you to lose everything, just like her father did." They raced through Houston streets in Ashley's Tesla, its enhanced engine silent but powerful. The hospital loomed ahead, its windows reflecting the setting sun like flames. "The truth about Gabrielle," Ashley's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. All those accusations, the evidence against her. Winter used her position as Gabrielle's assistant to study her work patterns, her research, her entire life. She twisted legitimate meetings into something sinister, used real events to create false implications. The perfect lie is built around a core of truth. The hospital's security system was already compromised when they arrived. Winter's quantum encryption had given her complete control, but she hadn't counted on Adeline's military-grade countermeasures. "She's on the 3rd floor." Adeline's tactical display showed heat signatures moving through the building. Rikers covering the emergency exits. They planned this like a military operation. Ashley checked the gun Adeline had given him, his hands steady despite everything. The weight of truth settled around him like armor. He had been wrong about Gabrielle, wrong about everything. Now he had a chance to make it right. As they moved through the hospital's quiet corridors, Ashley saw his reflection in the polished floors. No longer the proud CEO, but a man fighting for his family. Winter had wanted to destroy him, but instead, she had forced him to see the truth about himself. The NICU doors loomed ahead. Beyond them, Winter waited with his children, ready to complete her years-long revenge. But she hadn't counted on one thing: the power of a father's love once awakened to truth. "Ready?" Adeline asked, her tactical gear contrasting sharply with the hospital's sterile walls. Ashley nodded, thinking of Gabrielle's tears, of missed moments with his twins, of all the truths he had been too blind to see. "Let's end this." The doors opened to a confrontation years in the making, as sunset painted Houston's skyline in colors of revelation and redemption. Chapter 9. Blood and Water. The abandoned Winters Industries facility loomed against the darkening Houston sky, its deteriorating structure a ghostly reminder of Thomas Winters's fallen empire. Ashley Gale stood before it now, the weight of past and present pressing down on him as he faced the final confrontation with Winter Monroe, Aurora Winters, and the shocking truth about Riker Chase. Adeline's voice crackled through his earpiece, her tone tense but controlled. "Winter's holding position on the 3rd floor. Thermal imaging shows 3 heat signatures, Winter, Riker, and—" she hesitated, "and someone else. We can't confirm if it's Gabriel." An hour earlier, Winter had escaped federal custody during transfer, aided by Riker in a precisely executed plan. They had taken Gabrielle during a scheduled visit with the twins at the hospital, leaving behind a message for Ashley. "Come alone to where it all began. Time to finish what my father started." The Winters Industries building had been the site of Thomas Winter's last stand against Ashley's hostile takeover. Now, his daughter had chosen it for her final act of revenge. The symbolism wasn't lost on Ashley. This was where one family's destruction had begun, and where another's might end. "Remember," Adeline cautioned, "Riker isn't just Winter's accomplice. Our DNA analysis confirms he's your half-brother, your father's illegitimate son with Catherine Chase, your father's biggest corporate rival. His hatred runs just as deep as Winter's." Ashley absorbed this information, another piece of his past coming back to haunt him. How many secrets had his father buried in his rise to power? How many lives had been shattered in the name of corporate empire building? The building's security system had been reactivated, Winter's expertise in quantum computing turning the abandoned facility into a high-tech fortress. Ashley's phone buzzed with a text. "3rd floor, East Wing. Come say goodbye to your family or brother." Riker's taunt carried years of bitter resentment. All those years as Ashley's head of security, playing the loyal friend while nursing a lifetime of rejection and anger. He had found a kindred spirit in Winter, both of them children destroyed by the Gale family's ambitions. "I'm going in," Ashley announced, checking the body armor Adeline had insisted he wear. "If anything happens, we've got satellite coverage and tactical teams in position." Adeline assured him. But remember, Winter's not just looking for revenge anymore. This is about legacy now. She wants you to understand exactly what your father and you took from her family. The building's entrance lobby was a time capsule of corporate failure. Faded logos and dusty awards cases told the story of Thomas Winter's once promising company. Ashley's footsteps echoed on the marble floor as he moved toward the stairwell, each step heavy with the weight of consequences. Emergency lights flickered to life as he climbed, Winter's way of showing she controlled even his path to confrontation. The second floor was dark, but the third blazed with harsh fluorescent lighting, creating stark shadows and blind corners. Ashley. Winter's voice carried down the corridor. Welcome to your reckoning. He followed the voice to find a scene orchestrated for maximum emotional impact. The East Wing's executive office, once Thomas Winter's sanctuary, had been transformed into a theatrical stage for revenge. Winter stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Houston skyline creating a dramatic backdrop. Riker held Gabriel at gunpoint near the desk that had once belonged to his father. "Hello, brother." Riker's smile was cold. "Family reunion at last." "Let her go." Ashley kept his voice steady. "This is between us." "Us?" Winter laughed. "Oh, it's about so much more than that. This is about legacy, Ashley, about children paying for their father's sins." She moved to a computer terminal, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. "Did you know your father and mine were actually friends once? Partners in quantum computing research, until your father saw an opportunity and took it." Screens around the room flickered to life, displaying old photographs and documents. Thomas Winter's and Ashley's father in happier times, their research partnership documented in patents and papers. Then came the evidence of betrayal, secret board meetings, manipulated stock prices, corporate espionage. "My father trusted yours," Winter continued, her perfect mask cracking to reveal raw pain. "Just like Gabrielle trusted you. And look how that turned out." "You don't have to do this," Ashley tried to reason. "Your father's research, his real legacy, I can help restore it, make it public, give him credit." "Credit?" Riker's grip on Gabrielle tightened. "Like the credit your father gave my mother before destroying her company and denying my existence. The mighty Gales, building their empire on broken promises and abandoned children." Gabrielle caught Ashley's eye, her expression conveying volumes. She was buying time, waiting for an opportunity. Her training in AI security had taught her to analyze patterns, to find weaknesses in systems. She had noticed something about the room's layout, about Winter's positioning. "You're right," Ashley said, drawing Winter's attention. "I became exactly what my father was, someone who saw people as assets or obstacles. I destroyed lives building my empire, just like he did. But I can change. I can make amends." "Amends!" Winter's laugh was bitter. "Like the flowers you sent to my father's funeral, or the press release calling his death a tragic loss to the industry." She pressed a button, and more screens lit up, showing the twins in the hospital nursery. "No, Ashley, real amends require real sacrifice." The truth hit him then. This wasn't just about revenge or legacy. Winter and Riker were making him choose, just as his father had chosen empire over empathy, power over people. "A life for a life," Riker announced. "Your wife or your children. Decide quickly, brother. Clock's ticking." But they had miscalculated. In their desire for perfect revenge, they had overlooked something crucial. While Winter and Riker focused on Ashley, Gabriel had been analyzing the room's quantum security system. As Winter's assistant, she had learned the woman's coding patterns, her technological preferences. "Ashley," Gabrielle's voice was calm. "Remember what you taught me about quantum entanglement, how observing one particle affects its partner." He understood immediately. Winter had used her father's quantum encryption throughout the building's security system, but quantum systems had a fundamental vulnerability: observation changed outcomes. "Now!" Ashley shouted. Gabrielle drove her elbow into Riker's solar plexus as Ashley lunged for Winter. At the same moment, Gabrielle's phone, which she had been surreptitiously programming, sent a cascade of quantum observations through Winter's security system. The building's power grid went haywire, plunging them into darkness broken only by emergency lights. In the chaos that followed, years of buried truths and festering wounds erupted into physical confrontation. Riker, trained in combat, recovered quickly from Gabrielle's strike. Winter abandoned her computer terminal to join the fight, her carefully constructed vengeance dissolving into primal rage. But they hadn't counted on Gabrielle's determination or Ashley's desperation. As Adeline's tactical teams breached the building, the four combatants grappled in the shadows of corporate ghosts. Brother fought brother, while Winter found herself facing the woman whose life she had nearly destroyed. "He's not worth your loyalty," Winter spat at Gabrielle. "The Gales destroy everything they touch." "You're wrong," Gabrielle countered, deflecting Winter's attack. "People can change. Even empires can be rebuilt on better foundations." The struggle ended as suddenly as it began. Riker, attempting to reach his dropped weapon, was tackled by Ashley. Winter, seeing her plans crumbling, made a final desperate move toward the computer terminal. But Gabrielle was faster, her understanding of Winter's systems allowing her to shut down the entire network with a few precise commands. As Adeline's team secured the scene, Ashley held Gabrielle close, feeling her heartbeat strong against his chest. Through the windows, dawn was breaking over Houston, painting the sky in colors of hope and renewal. "The twins," Gabrielle whispered. "Safe," Adeline confirmed through their earpieces. Winter's hospital access was blocked the moment she made her move. They never left the secure ward. As Winter and Riker were led away in handcuffs, Ashley looked around the office where Thomas Winters had once dreamed of changing the world through technology. So many broken dreams, so many shattered lives, all because men like his father and later himself had valued power over people. "We need to go." Gabrielle touched his arm gently. "Phoenix and Rain are waiting." Ashley nodded, understanding that while this chapter of revenge had ended, the real work of redemption was just beginning. Together, they walked out of the shadow of past sins and into the light of a new day, ready to build something stronger than empires. A family founded on truth, forgiveness, and love. Chapter 10. Love Sacrifice. Red warning lights pulsed through Gale Enterprises' quantum computing lab as Gabrielle's fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces. Winter's virus wasn't just attacking their systems. It was evolving, learning, adapting in real time, using quantum uncertainty principles to bypass every defense. "The virus is mutating faster than our countermeasures." Gabrielle's voice was tight with concentration. "It's using quantum entanglement to propagate across secure networks. Winter didn't just create a virus. She created artificial intelligence that thinks in quantum states. The main display showed the virus's progress across global financial networks. Traditional security measures were useless against code that existed in multiple states simultaneously, using quantum superposition to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Tokyo Stock Exchange is down," Adeline reported from her tactical station. "London markets are showing critical system failures. This isn't just about destroying Gale Enterprises anymore. It's about collapsing the entire global financial infrastructure." Ashley watched as another firewall fell, the quantum virus using his own company's technology to spread. How is it breaching quantum encryption? That should be mathematically impossible. "Because it's using my protocols." Gabrielle pulled up her research files, revealing the terrible truth. "Remember those late nights when Winter was my assistant? She wasn't just watching, she was learning, adapting my ethical AI research into something that could bypass quantum security by appearing to be part of the system itself." The lab's quantum processors hummed at maximum capacity as they tried to track the virus's spread. Each attempt to isolate it only seemed to make it stronger, using the attention to learn and evolve further. "We have maybe 10 minutes before it reaches critical mass," Adeline warned. "Once it infects enough systems, the cascade failure will be unstoppable." Gabrielle's hands stilled over the interfaces. "There's a way to stop it, but—" She pulled up another screen, showing her investigation into Gale Enterprises' ethical violations. The virus is using vulnerabilities that exist in every major quantum computing system. Vulnerabilities that came from stolen technology, from corners cut in development, from prioritizing profit over safety. The implications hit Ashley like a physical blow. "You mean, to stop the virus, we have to expose everything? All the corporate secrets, all the questionable practices, all the stolen innovations. The virus spreads by exploiting these hidden flaws. The only way to stop it is to bring everything into the light." Another alarm blared as the virus breached the Federal Reserve's quantum firewalls. On the displays, digital infection spread like wildfire through the global financial nervous system. "Show me," Ashley demanded. Gabrielle's fingers flew across the holographic controls, revealing years of corporate malfeasance. Technology stolen from companies like Winters Industries, safety protocols ignored, ethical guidelines bypassed, all of it woven into the fundamental architecture of modern quantum computing. Winter didn't just want revenge, Gabrielle explained as she worked. She wanted to prove that the entire system is built on a foundation of lies. Her virus exploits these moral compromises as much as technical vulnerabilities. The lab's quantum processors projected a countdown, 8 minutes until total system collapse. Gabrielle's hands moved with surgical precision as she prepared her countermeasure. "What happens if we expose everything?" Ashley asked, already knowing the answer. "Gale Enterprises, as we know it, ends. Every quantum system built on compromised technology will have to be rebuilt from scratch. The financial cost will be in the billions. But more than that," she met his eyes. "Everything you built, every success, every achievement, it all gets revealed as being built on stolen dreams and broken lives." A new alert flashed. The virus had reached Asian markets. The global economy was starting to shudder under the strain of cascading system failures. "Do it," Ashley said quietly, his eyes on a secure feed showing their twins sleeping peacefully in the hospital nursery. "Save what matters." Gabrielle initiated her countermeasure, not just a program, but a confession. Years of corporate secrets began flooding into regulatory databases, ethics committees, and media outlets. Each revelation was a nail in Gale Enterprises' coffin, but also a shield against Winter's virus. The quantum processors screamed as they executed Gabrielle's code. On the main display, stock tickers started plummeting as the truth spread faster than the virus. Gale Enterprises' market value evaporated in real time as decades of deception came to light. "The virus is losing ground," Adeline reported. "It can't exploit vulnerabilities that are being publicly exposed. But the damage to the company is complete," Ashley finished, watching his life's work dissolve into transparency. "And necessary." Gabrielle's countermeasure continued its work, turning on every light, opening every closet, exposing every skeleton. The virus, designed to exploit shadows and secrets, began to fail as those shadows vanished. The lab's emergency lights faded from red to normal as the crisis passed. But the real damage was just beginning. Outside, reporters were already gathering as news of the revelations spread. Federal investigators would arrive within hours. Ashley moved to stand behind Gabrielle, his hands gentle on her shoulders as she completed the destruction of his empire to save something far more precious, truth itself. "I knew about the ethical violations," she admitted quietly. "I was gathering evidence, building a case. That's why Winter chose me as her target. She knew I was already investigating the company's practices." You could have stopped the virus without revealing everything, Ashley realized. Found a technical solution that preserved the secrets. Yes, Gabriel's voice was firm, but then nothing would really change. We'd just be hiding new lies under old ones. She turned to face him. Our children deserve better than an inheritance built on deception. Through the lab's windows, dawn was breaking over Houston. The sun rose on a different world, one where Gale Enterprises was falling, but something more valuable was rising from its ashes. What happens now? Adeline asked softly. Ashley looked at the displays, showing the extent of the revelations, the depth of the necessary destruction. His empire was gone, but his conscience was finally clear. Now we build something real, he said, taking Gabrielle's hand. Something honest, something our children can be proud of. The quantum processors hummed a quieter song now, no longer protecting secrets, but revealing truths. Outside, the world was changing, reshaping itself around revelations that couldn't be unmade. Winter had meant her virus to be the ultimate revenge. Instead, it had become the instrument of ultimate redemption, forcing a choice between preserving power and preserving truth. In the end, truth had won, and in that victory, something new and stronger could finally begin to grow. Chapter 11. Redemption's Price. The federal courthouse in downtown Houston stood as a monument to justice, its marble facade gleaming in the morning sun. Inside, in a packed courtroom, Ashley Gale faced the consequences of his empire's exposed foundations. The SEC investigation had expanded into a full federal probe, bringing to light years of corporate malfeasance that went far beyond Winter's revenge plot. Gabrielle sat in the front row, her presence both support and witness. The twins were with her sister Jasmine, protected from the media circus that had descended upon Houston's most prominent tech family. 3 months had passed since the exposure of Gale Enterprises' questionable practices, and now came the moment of public reckoning. Mr. Gale, Federal Judge Eleanor Martinez's voice carried authority earned through decades on the bench. Before this court renders its decision regarding the corporate practices of Gale Enterprises, you have requested the opportunity to address the court. Proceed. Ashley stood, straightening his tie, no longer wearing his usual bespoke suits, but something more modest, more honest. The past months had changed him, stripped away the armor of wealth and privilege to reveal something more fundamental. Your Honor, he began, his voice steady despite the stakes. I'm not here to defend my actions or the practices of my company. I'm here to acknowledge them, to take responsibility for a culture of corporate aggression that destroyed lives and corrupted innovation. The courtroom remained silent as Ashley turned to face the gallery, where families of those affected by his business practices sat watching. Among them were children of executives whose companies he'd destroyed, former employees who'd tried to blow the whistle on ethical violations, and inventors whose innovations had been stolen through legal manipulation. I built Gale Enterprises on a foundation of lies, he continued, not just technical shortcuts and ethical violations, but fundamental lies about what success means, about the price we're willing to let others pay for our ambitions. He gestured to a display screen where evidence of his company's practices was shown. Every hostile takeover, every patent appropriation, every competitive manipulation created victims. Real people with real dreams, real families, real lives. His eyes found Thomas Winter's photo among the evidence. I sent flowers to Thomas Winter's funeral, thinking that gesture somehow balanced the scales of destroying everything he'd built. I told myself it was just business, just the way the game was played. I was wrong. The judge leaned forward, her interest evident. This wasn't the typical corporate mea culpa crafted by lawyers to minimize damages. This was something raw, something real. Winter Monroe, Aurora Winters, tried to destroy me the way she believed I destroyed her father, Ashley acknowledged. But in doing so, she forced me to see the truth about myself, about the legacy I was creating. My wife, Gabrielle, sacrificed our company's secrets to save the global financial market from Winter's virus. But she did more than that. She gave me a chance at redemption. He turned back to face the judge. I'm not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I'm asking for the opportunity to make things right, not through corporate settlements or legal maneuvering, but through fundamental change. The evidence screen showed new images, plans for restructuring Gale Enterprises into a collective of ethical technology development with oversight from those who had been victims of its past practices. Proposals for patent returns, compensation programs, and comprehensive reforms. The company I built through aggression and manipulation is gone, Ashley stated firmly. What rises in its place will be different, transparent, ethical, focused on innovation that serves humanity rather than just profit margins. Judge Martinez studied the man before her. And the other families? The ones like the Winters, who lost everything to your corporate strategies? They'll be more than compensated, Ashley replied. But money isn't enough. I'm establishing a foundation, funded by my personal assets, to support technological innovation and ethical business practices. The board will be comprised of those who once stood against Gale Enterprises' methods, including Winter Monroe if she chooses to participate after serving her sentence. The revelation caused murmurs in the courtroom. Offering a position of influence to the woman who had tried to destroy him was either madness or true commitment to change. Your own role in this new organization, the judge inquired. Advisory only, Ashley confirmed. No controlling interest, no executive authority. The foundation will be independently managed, with transparent oversight and ethical guidelines, developed in partnership with leading technology ethicists, including my wife, whose work I once undervalued and whose principles I should have embraced sooner. He paused, gathering himself for the hardest part. I'm also here to confess to actions not yet discovered by investigators. Over the past months, I've documented every questionable decision, every ethical breach, every instance where profit was prioritized over people. The full record has been provided to the prosecution. The district attorney straightened in surprise. This went far beyond their plea agreement, potentially exposing Ashley to additional charges and penalties. Mr. Gale, Judge Martinez's tone held both skepticism and interest. You understand that these additional confessions could significantly impact your sentence? Yes, Your Honor. But real redemption requires complete truth, not just convenient admissions. My children will grow up knowing that their father chose honesty over self-protection, transparency over legal advantage. Gabrielle watched from her seat, tears in her eyes but pride in her bearing. This was the man she had always believed Ashley could be, emerging from the chrysalis of crisis and consequence. The judge took a moment to review the new documentation. This is unusual, Mr. Gale. Most corporate defendants fight to minimize their exposure. You appear to be doing the opposite. Because minimizing exposure is what led us here, Your Honor. My father built his success on buried truths and convenient lies. I followed his example until Winter's revenge and Gabrielle's courage showed me a better path. I'm choosing a different legacy for my children. The courtroom remained hushed as Judge Martinez considered. The prosecution and defense teams shifted uncomfortably. This confession had moved far beyond their carefully negotiated agreements. Very well, the judge finally spoke. In light of these additional admissions and your apparent commitment to reform, this court will take a brief recess to review the new evidence. But Mr. Gale, understand that such extensive confessions will necessitate proportional consequences. Ashley nodded, his posture straight. I understand, Your Honor. Real change has a price. I'm ready to pay it. As the judge left the courtroom, Gabrielle moved to stand beside her husband. They had discussed this moment for weeks. His decision to go beyond legal requirements and expose everything, knowing it would likely mean time in federal prison. "The twins," he asked softly. "Will know their father chose truth," she replied, squeezing his hand. "That's worth more than any fortune or freedom." The gallery began to clear, but not before Ashley noticed something remarkable. Some of those he had wronged, seeing his complete confession and commitment to change, nodded in acknowledgement. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but recognition of genuine remorse and determination to make amends. Adeline, watching from the back of the courtroom, understood better than most the magnitude of this moment. In her investigations, she had seen countless corporate criminals offer partial admissions to minimize penalties. This was different, a man choosing the harder path of complete disclosure and full responsibility. The morning sun continued to shine through the courthouse windows, casting long shadows that seemed to represent the past while illuminating a possible future. Ashley Gale, who had once measured success in dollars and dominance, now stood ready to measure it in truth and transformation. As they waited for the judge's return and whatever consequences would follow, Ashley and Gabrielle remained together, their hands clasped, their path forward uncertain but shared. The price of redemption would be high, but the reward, a legacy their children could be proud of, was worth every cost. Chapter 12. Love's Revolution. 6 months after his court confession, Ashley Gale stood at the window of his minimum security federal prison, watching a storm gather over Houston. His 3-year sentence was the price of redemption. But today was special. His first allowed visit with the twins since his incarceration began. Through the visitor room's reinforced glass, he saw them first, Phoenix and Rain, now crawling, their eyes bright with curiosity. Gabrielle followed, more beautiful than ever in a simple blue dress, carrying the latest reports from the Ethics in Technology Foundation she now led. The guards allowed them a private room due to Gabrielle's status and Ashley's exemplary behavior. The moment the door closed, emotions overwhelmed him. Holding his children for the first time in months, feeling their tiny hearts beat against his chest, he knew every sacrifice had been worth it. "They've grown so much," he whispered, tears falling freely as Phoenix grabbed his finger with surprising strength. "They ask about you every day," Gabrielle said softly, watching her family reunite. "I show them your pictures, tell them stories about their brave father who chose truth over empire." The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the visiting room in brief, brilliant flashes. Rain, living up to her name, laughed at each thunderclap while Phoenix remained focused on exploring his father's face with tiny fingers. "The Foundation's latest report," Gabrielle placed a tablet on the table. "We've identified and compensated 60 more families affected by past corporate practices." And Winter... Ashley looked up sharply. Since his sentencing, Winter Monroe, Aurora Winters, had maintained complete silence from her own prison cell. "She's accepted the position," Gabrielle continued. "Once she completes her sentence, she'll join the Foundation's ethics board. Her father's quantum computing breakthroughs are finally being credited properly. His theories are revolutionizing cybersecurity." Thunder crashed outside as Ashley absorbed this news. And Riker, still refusing contact, but the DNA test results were made public. Some of the business media is calling it the Great Gale Reckoning, how 2 scorned children brought down an empire but inadvertently sparked a revolution in corporate ethics. Ashley watched his own children playing on the visiting room floor, their innocent laughter a counterpoint to the storm's fury. "They'll never know that kind of pain," he vowed. "No hidden siblings, no buried truths. They'll grow up understanding that real strength comes from honesty, not power." Gabrielle touched his face gently, wiping away a tear he hadn't realized had fallen. "That's why I fell in love with you, you know. Not the billionaire CEO, but the man I knew you could become. The man who would sacrifice everything for truth and love. Lightning flashed again, and in that brilliant moment, Ashley saw their reflection in the window. No longer Houston's perfect power couple, but something far more precious. A family built on truth, tested by fire, strengthened by adversity. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Love isn't about deserving," Gabriel echoed her words from months ago. "It's about choosing. Every day I choose us, flaws, mistakes, and all." Phoenix crawled to his father's feet, raising his arms to be lifted. As Ashley held his son, Rain followed, not wanting to be left out. The four of them stood together, silhouetted against the storm-dark sky, while Houston's skyline, where the Gale Enterprises logo had once dominated, told a story of transformation. Their empire of glass had shattered, but from those sharp and painful shards they had built something unbreakable. Not a corporate dynasty, but a legacy of truth. Not a kingdom of power, but a family of love. The storm began to ease, rays of sunset breaking through the clouds. In that golden light, Ashley held his family close, understanding finally that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars or dominance, but in the courage to face truth, the strength to choose love, and the wisdom to know that some sacrifices were really salvation in disguise. "Time's almost up," a guard said gently from the doorway. Ashley kissed his children, memorizing their faces, their scents, their laughter. To Gabrielle he whispered, "Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." 3 more years, she replied softly, a small price for forever. As his family departed, Ashley watched them until they disappeared from view. The storm had passed, leaving behind a cleaned sky and a rainbow that arched over Houston like a promise of better days ahead. In his cell that night, Ashley held the twins' latest pictures, their smiles radiant with unconditional love. He had lost an empire but gained a soul, failed as a CEO but succeeded as a father, fallen as a tycoon but risen as a man. Outside his window, stars emerged in the storm-washed sky. Somewhere out there, Winter too was contemplating her choices. Riker was wrestling with his identity, and countless lives were being rebuilt through the Foundation's work. But here, in this moment, Ashley Gale, no longer Houston's tech titan, but simply a man learning the true meaning of love, smiled at his children's photographs and whispered, "Sweet dreams, my angels. Daddy chose truth for you." The night deepened, but his heart was light. Empire had become exile, but exile had become enlightenment. And in the end, love had proven stronger than revenge, truth more powerful than deception, and the heart's revolution more lasting than any corporate conquest could ever be. For our beloved readers, this story of love after betrayal teaches us that 1. Love is not about blind trust, but about choosing to stand by someone through their darkest moments and believing in their capacity to change. Sometimes the person who seems to have betrayed you might themselves be a victim of others' manipulations. 2. Success built on deception will always remain fragile, no matter how grand it appears. True strength comes from facing our mistakes, acknowledging our wrongs, and having the courage to rebuild on a foundation of honesty. 3. Revenge might seem sweet, but it often consumes the seeker, turning them into something they never wanted to be. Winter's elaborate plan for vengeance ultimately gave her targets the chance for redemption while trapping her in her own web of lies. 4. When faced with a choice between preserving your empire and preserving your integrity, choose integrity. Your children will inherit your values more surely than your wealth. Make those values worth inheriting. 5. The most powerful form of love isn't found in never making mistakes, but in how we choose to make things right after we've failed. Sometimes losing everything material is necessary to gain everything that matters in life. Remember, A true happy ending isn't about keeping what you have, but about becoming who you were meant to be. Subscribe if you loved.